The most someone could be president is 8 years. Now, we hope to be the owners of this company for 50, 60, 70, or whatever it is. But even if we are, say we own the company for 80 years, that's a huge number. We're not even scratching the surface of Bissinger's, so we are only going to be one chapter of this company. It's such a responsibility that I love it.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I'm your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we have Dan Abel Jr., and I'm really excited to talk about him and the company Bissinger's, because when you think of fine Parisian chocolates from the 1600s, you probably think of St. Louis. And so, Dan, welcome out to the show. Excited to talk to you about how you're at the helm of this very historic company.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So how does a company founded in Paris in the 1800s or in the 1600s, fine gourmet high-end chocolates, which are delicious, by the way, I tried them last night. How does that end up in your hands in St. Louis?
So that's a good question. There's 3 dates that are really important to Bissinger's, and every time I tell the story, I feel like I'm a historian, and I'm really not, because I'm terrible at remembering dates. But I'm good at this. And it's the first one is 1668. And we don't know truly the first day Bissinger's, the family started, handcrafting confections. But we know that in 1668, they were appointed the confesseur impérial, which is it was a royal appointment by the King of France. It's confectioner of the empire. And they held that title forever, like centuries, 150 plus years through different kings and queens. So that's kind of what we do as the start. So 1668, maybe they started in 1650, but sure. Since we've broke the 350-year mark, who's counting at that point? And then really the next macro date is 1845, and that's when the family immigrated to the United States. So they brought the recipes with them. I believe their head candy maker came with them as well. And then it was the entire Bissinger family. They moved to the United States, and they moved to Cincinnati first, and they opened up the first Bissinger store there. And then kind of like the third big date is 1927, and that's when the father that moved the family to the United States, he had passed away, and the son decided to move to St. Louis, Bissinger's to St. Louis. And so we're coming up to, less than 2 years from the centennial 100-year anniversary of Bissinger's in St. Louis, but that's like not even a third of the history. It's almost a quarter of the history. So it's kind of remarkable that we will be celebrating something that almost no business gets to do. And that's only just a snippet of what this company actually is.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, definitely the oldest of the over 500 businesses I've interviewed. Definitely the oldest. And so how did you get involved? How long have you been a part of the family now in the business?
Yeah, so my family started a candy company. My parents did before I was born in 1981. And we wouldn't say we're competitors. We were just the other candy company in St. Louis. There's some other ones, but we grew quite a bit, and Bissinger's was growing quite a bit. And one of the big similarities that with us and Bissinger's that we had was there's this dedication to handcrafting confections with really good ingredients. And so I would go to other candy companies, whether it's locally, regionally, nationally, whatever, and you just kind of see that because it's a hard craft. And so when there's so much labor involved and there's so much handwork involved, ingredients start to suffer. And that was something that my family was obsessed about. Like, no matter what, always think in 5-year blocks. And when you think in 5-year blocks, you're thinking about, customer first, longevity, and don't sacrifice ingredients, don't sacrifice quality. And that was my dad's whole mission. He worked for a big candy company, and that's kind of how he fell in love with the business in the 70s. And he came back to St. Louis and said, I want to create everything in very small batches, very handmade, and kind of took his spin on it. And that's really Bissinger's ethos. So when the company actually went for sale in 2019, and we were growing a chocolate company, double digits every year for 10 years straight. We had gone through, some big growth where we added another facility online. We kept adding a lot of big equipment. And, in 2006, 7, 8, 9, a new production line could have been $20,000 to $50,000. By 2014, 15, and 16, those were $500,000 to $1 million investments. So the business grew substantially, and the capital outlay and the investment was growing as well. So everything was scaling to an extent. And I was the first one of the family that said, this is the next chapter for us, is we have to own this company. And my parents, being the founders and really involved in the patriarchs of the business and of the family, said, I agree with you. So there was kind of like, because we all knew what Bissinger's was. We grew up in St. Louis, and Bissinger's had such a highly respected company, and we've been in the stores, we've had the product. So it was this, I agree with you, and I know what you're saying. However, you can break two businesses. Chocolate companies doing very well. Mm-hmm. You can break two companies at the same time if you screw this up. And that was a very, that was like a 5-minute pause. But then I was like, no, I still think this is the right choice. That was 6 years ago. I didn't have kids at the time. I was newly married, and I could be at work till 9:00 at night, and it wasn't like I wouldn't be able to tuck my kids in at night. I'm just, upsetting one person, my wife, instead of 4 people now. So I was just like, yeah, I don't care. I think it's a great idea. Let's do it. And so, I joke now because 6 years later, it was a good move for us. But I rarely talk about the mistakes we made. Just this, just successful. But no, it just felt so right. And just meeting with them, like we went in, and they could have sold to a big multinational because they had such a great name and brand story. But we met with them and said, listen, guys, we love this company, and we believe that nobody will make starch casted handmade lemon creams that uses pure lemon zest and pure lemon oil, and it takes 4 days to make a single batch, and you hand decorate a cursive L on top of every one. No one will do that in the world except for us, and we want to be the ones to do that next. And I said, please don't sell to a big national. They will destroy this company. They will take the brand equity is so much more valuable than the sales.
Yeah.
And I said, they'll take that and go run with it and kill it. And I said, I won't. And whatever come take a tour of our facility, come try whatever you believe in. We were at the time, we're really big in making artisan truffles. And that's still, even with Bissinger, still the biggest thing we do is artisan truffles. And it's a true labor of love. You have to make the ganache, you have to shell the product into a ball, then you enrobe it and hand decorate every one. So I said, we chose the hardest thing in the industry to do, in the most touch points and the most handmade, chocolate confection you can. There's literally extruding lines where you can go press a button and a chocolate buttercream comes out. We don't have a single process in our manufacturing facility like that. So we always choose the hard, and they really took heart to it. They truly believed that we were the next chapter, and it was easier to then finalize a deal, because they're like, yeah, we agree with you. You're right. Okay. How do we make this work for everybody? And I thought that we felt so comfortable with, because they knew, we thought that they understood that, we would take it to the next, be the next generation. I always say it's kind of like, like a presidential administration.
Yeah.
The most someone can be president is 8 years. Now, we hope to be the owners of this company for 50, 60, 70, or whatever it is. But even if we are, say we own the company for 80 years, that's a huge number. We're not even scratching the surface of Bissinger's, so we are only going to be one chapter of this company. Yeah. And it's such a responsibility that I love it.
Yeah, but you really, it looks like you really took it on as a stewardship. Like, hey, we're going to honor the past and
for sure,
while working forward. When you look at a company this old, and you have you had your company with its own history, how do you both honor the 300 years of history and those processes while still staying relevant to the future? Like, where do you draw the line of accepting improvement and progress?
That's a good question. So the first year at Bissinger's, in 2019, I said, we've got to just get a catalog produced and a photo done. And, silly things like a chocolate company, an assortment of truffles. Every truffle was a different, every cavity of the tray was a different truffle.
Hmm.
Bissinger's truffle assortments, for example, were in rows. So it was just a row of raspberry, a row of chocolate, a row of vanilla. And I said, everything we do is going to be the Bissinger's way. I want to not break it. I want to do exactly as they've done for the last 5 or 6 years, so I can truly understand who the customer is, what they want. And then we learned some of the things that we're doing were not actually what the customer wanted.
Yeah.
And then some of the products that are there were exactly what they wanted. So we're obsessed with that, you know, talking to, I mean, I read every review that comes on the website. I talk to the store managers. I go to the warehouse at the holidays and help pack orders and just see, like, you can see it on an Excel file or read a report, but if you get a stack, like a printout this thick of orders, and then you just start going through it and you walk to the, like every fifth order is a box of half dip apricots, it just burns into your memory that, okay, fruit and chocolate is a big thing for Bissingers. Why do we only have 2 fruit and chocolate items? We should have 6. And
Yeah.
I just feel like if you have to feel if you can feel it physically and do it, then you'll get the right answers, which is not like throw the easy way out the door. I like to actually feel a little bit of, the pressure of the brand sometimes on my shoulders. And usually that's where I get the right answers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, getting closer to the customer and what's actually happening in the business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you kind of acquired the company 2019, what challenges did you face of the kind of the old company and your family and your old legacy with the new company, like mixing those two, and how do you guys
That's a great
resolve it?
question. And we had our head candy maker here was, I'll tell you 2 stories that will kind of blow your mind. Our head candy maker came to us in 2009, but he had been Bissinger's head candy maker from 96 to 2009. He started really young. His father-in-law was a part owner one time of Bissinger's and head candy maker of Bissinger's for almost 50 years.
Oh, wow.
His father-in-law's father was Mr. Bissinger's candy maker. So well before we owned Bissinger's, a decade before we owned Bissinger's, 10 years exact, I had trained and worked under our candy maker, Brian, and he taught me not the Bissinger's recipes, but that technique and, the legacy that he had been taught under 2 generations. And so that process, in discipline is how I learned how to make candy. So we bought a smaller candy company in 2009 and I handmade everything. And I said, I want to learn. I'm going to spend 100% of my time in the candy kitchen. I'm going to learn. I'm going to make candy. I'm going to, be with you the whole time. And that's what I did for years. And I loved every second. In fact, if I look at my entire tenure in this business, that was my favorite 3 years ever. We were much, much smaller.
Sure.
Had much less employees, but it was just the most fun. Like, we didn't have auditors and quality team and engineer, like everything that goes into, every other day I'm talking to, one of the professionals, whether it's our accountants, lawyers, or paying bills, or, bank. And so it was just making candy. And my parents were handling the administrative side and ordering, and but I just made candy and I loved it. And there's just nothing like it. If you love to make candy, that's what you do. And I still love it. My brother kind of came in when he got out of school and he loved it as much as I did. And I would go off to, we needed to grow the business, and I'd go off to, meet with customers and national trade shows. And he kind of swept into my role in the kitchen. He's like, no, you're out. Go sell the product. Go run the business. So he took my dream job, which is he's amazing at it. So it really works out. So I get to sell and, oversee the operation. My sister is, has this financial, very left brain mind. So she can handle payroll and accounting and accounts receivable and everything with that organization, stores. And I can kind of be more the right brain. I say my role is chief chocolate officer because what I like to do is create, innovate products. I work with all teams. And so that's really what we do with our ownership structure.
Give us a little bit of a top level overview of where the company is today. It's like, how many stores are you in? How many stores do you guys have yourself? That sort of a thing.
So we have three locations now, as far as physical boutiques. When we bought the company, there was one. We added the manufacturing facility as a retail store. So we share that. Bissinger shares that with Chocolate Company. It's the only store that actually both brands are shared together. And then we added another store in 2021. But we're actually going to be kind of the new vision. So from 2000, we had what we thought we were going to do in 2019 to what we thought, from 2020 completely changed with COVID.
Sure.
And
Oh, yeah.
the brand, retail had to close for a little bit. A lot of our wholesale accounts closed or paused for a little bit. And all of the new business that we thought we were going to get, paused, and sales reps couldn't travel, but online exploded. And online was a 7-figure business already. We print, publish, and distribute 7 national catalogs a year, but we grew it by about 165% in a 2-year period. So a business like I didn't know how direct to consumer worked. I didn't know how to create a catalog. We bought the business in June. We had to produce our first Thanksgiving catalog that year. I said, oh my God, who does this? Oh no, they're no longer with the company. Okay, well, where's the file? We don't know. Okay, let's figure this out together. And so we started kind of talking and building a team and did it. And I went to the their photographer that they used, and then I switched to my photographer. It was just a real time learning, and I just loved it. Like I still today, the direct to consumer was like the whole business for a couple of months, and now it's probably about 20% of the business. But I am the head of the direct to consumer division still. I will not give up that title. Like I love every minute of it. And, I still am looking at 45 minutes of every day is on the direct to consumer side. And then I go start my day. Like I can't, I come in at 6 a.m. from 6 to 7, it's direct to consumer. And then I say, okay, what's on my plate? What's my calendar look at? But then 2022, 2023, wholesale came back. So really great brand partnerships. Barnes & Noble, all 700 locations. We're in Dillard's. We're in a lot of specialty. We're in Paper Source, a lot of specialty stores, about 2,000 specialty stores. So I'd say collectively with key accounts, we just launched Bissinger's chocolate bars in World Market, which is about 300 stores. So I'd say collectively with key accounts and independents, probably about 3,000 doors across the United States.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah. And doing, large retail versus boutique accounts is very different, right? Selling to Barnes & Noble versus selling to someone that might own 2 or 3 specialty shops. Very, very different, as is direct to consumer, right? And so
yes.
What are some of the challenges that you faced as you were taking over? I mean, you guys had experience and, from running chocolate company, but what are some of the challenges maybe as COVID kind of waned and you started to regrow and get back out into distribution, and how'd you guys overcome those?
Great example. We got orders for chocolate got orders for Kohl's today. It's due to ship in July, Christmas. That's the distribution. And now the shelf life's great. It's going to be, by the time it gets into consumer product, it's, we have a 8-month shelf life, 9-month shelf life. We're going to make it in July. You're going to, so it's, but that's how the national wholesale business works. And so you have to run on a completely different cycle, completely different schedule. And you have, those numbers come in and then you produce and ship. And then wholesale's a long season. The independents, of course, are not even thinking about ordering Christmas, let alone they don't want it until some cases November.
Right.
Direct to consumer, I am not even kidding. We are making Christmas candy up until December 22nd, because if we run out of hand decorated cookies, we'll go make more.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that, he says to me, we were talking about how our production schedule lives in pencil, and if we run out of a $40 box of cookies, I'll just go make more. And he says, "Are you really?" He goes, "You got to move on to Valentine. Don't you have to?" I go, "Yeah, but this is a tradition for somebody. This is this is everything." He's like, "You'll move an entire production schedule for one $40 box?" I said, "We do it twice a week, 3 times." And he's in a big different industry, but he didn't understand that, like, and he's like, he goes, I understand if you're doing, 10 years ago you did that. You still do that today? Because he's known me a long time. I said,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same business model. We just make more product.
But I think
And
it shows your commitment to the customer, right? Because if you didn't care about that customer getting that box, and like you said, it's a tradition, it means something to them, right? It's a gift,
oh,
or
for
it's a
sure.
special moment that they're going to share with a family member. It means something.
I mean,
And that's the
and
difference
that's
with,
the
yeah,
stories we get with Bissingers. I mean, last year it's like still like the weirdest thing ever. Crisp chocolate Christmas mice. We take over the company and I'm like, really? And the whole thing goes back to, twice the night before Christmas, and a creature was stirring, not eating a mouse. And they started creating these things 50 years ago. And it's a chocolate mouse. Well, we had a surge last year. We had a big wholesale account take some at the last minute, and online direct to consumer and retail kind of got shorted, and we couldn't go back to make more because we had run out of packaging. And we said, well, I'd spot what we sell. And then of course a customer came in and bought a lot right away, and they were like, oh my gosh, now we're going to be short. And it was like the middle of December, and packaging's 4 weeks out, and it's December 15th. So we knew for the last 10 days we were going to sell out early. I had more complaints about these. Like, people sent emails in like, that was you ruined my Christmas. Of course, is an exaggeration, but
sure.
they went out of their way to make that email. It was so important. This is not a $200 box of candy. It's like $20. And so, but that's how important Bissingers is to that person. And we just feel that responsibility is so important to always deliver that. And
What's
hopefully make
the,
money
yeah.
along the way.
Yeah. That's an important part of business.
Yeah.
What's one of the craziest direct to consumer stories you've had? Like, an order coming in from a celebrity or something fun.
We have there's two that I can think of off the top of my head. One is we do this gooey butter cake, which is it's a coffee cake with Bissinger's chocolate in it. So years ago, it was a gift I was giving out because chocolate company, our artisan truffle business, we sell to other candy companies and they market it as their own. Of course, we also sell a lot ourselves with our own name, but a lot of it's in the bulk private label business. And so,
Yep.
we're a chocolate company. We're a box chocolate manufacturer. So if I'm sending out a gift, I send chocolates, but to the other candy companies, I said, I got to come up with a gift, but I want our chocolate. So we partnered with this local bakery and this famous gooey butter cake that we put our chocolate in, and people went crazy over it. They're calling me, where can I get it? And I was like, no, it's just a gift. I had 100 of these made from a friend of mine. And so then a couple of years later, COVID's happened and everything's exploding to sell online. So I go back, I was like, hey, do you want to make these actually in volume for me so I can sell them on Bissingers.com with Bissinger's chocolate? And they did. And Andy Cohen, like Christmas of 2023, I think it was, took one of our posts and shared it as on his Instagram. And we sold like hundreds of them in a very short amount of time. Like it was this incredible, if you're watching the data online, it just shot
Right.
up, and I was like, oh my God. And all this stuff. It was a Saturday. I was at the warehouse, and then 2 hours later, same day, we get a call from someone that says, can I order 2 gooey butter cakes to pick up at your factory store? And it was like two, 3 days before Thanksgiving. So maybe it wasn't, I'm sorry. It wasn't in December. It was
Sure.
in November, right around Thanksgiving. And so, sure, what's the name? The customer service is telling me the story. I wasn't the person on the phone.
Right.
They said, oh, it's under Andy Cohen. So all of a sudden, the factory is going crazy. The customer service division is going crazy. They said, Andy Cohen's actually coming. And so he's from St. Louis, and he comes back, comes home sometimes for the holidays, we assume. So we're like, oh my God, Andy Cohen just posted about this gooey butter cake on Instagram, and he's coming in the store. So I was, I'm usually not in the retail stores, and I didn't, I didn't stick around but I happened to be that Saturday. I was coming up after working in the warehouse all day in the morning. I came up to restock the store, and someone comes up to me and says, she said, do you work here? And I said, yes, I do. I said, well, how can I help you? He says, oh, I'm picking up an order. Absolutely. What's the name? He says, oh, it's under Cohen. So I said, oh, okay. And I went to go get it. And I said, is it, 2 gooey butter cakes? He said, yeah. I said, okay, great. So then I looked at him. I said, so I just assumed it was like Andy's assistant. I said, so is he in town? He goes, who? I go, I go, Andy. He goes, no, I'm Andy Cohen. I go, oh. I go, oh, good to know. And I go, he goes, oh, did you think I was the celebrity? I go, well, as a matter of fact, just like 3 days ago, he just posted this product on this. And he goes,
Yeah,
oh, that's
crazy
funny.
coincidence.
Yeah. I thought I got to meet Andy Cohen, but
Yeah,
that's as close as I
great.
got. But the real
Yeah,
Andy
right.
Cohen actually did post it. It's just
Yeah,
the other Andy Cohen came into the story. Yeah.
that's funny. Yeah, I got a call once from Kevin Bacon. It wasn't the Kevin Bacon.
The Kevin, yeah.
It's like, oh man, that's, who'd have thought? Well, as you've been running this company for a while. You grew up, it sounds like, really in a business focused family, and now you have kids. And I'm a big believer that business is important and it's a ton of fun and it's what we do, but it's not our whole life. So, what's one item on your personal bucket list you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
I hope to get a couple strokes off my golf game.
Okay. Nice.
But
Got to find time to get out there.
There's a lot of room for improvement, so it should be obtainable. So,
is there a dream course?
I actually last year was invited by my father-in-law to go play in Scotland, so I got to play St. Andrews. Cool. It was amazing. Cool. Yeah, awesome. But so everything's downhill from here now. Like, you play St. Andrews, what else? What else is? But I love playing different courses, but I've got a group of guys that we go out and we play, we smoke a cigar, we have a good time, have a drink, nothing's too serious. And it's just a lot of fun. So it truly is. I like to play with my wife too. And my kids are really young. I mean, 5, 6, and 2.5. But my 5-year-old the other day says, when are we going to play golf? And so if I can, and sometimes we go out with them and they like raking the sand more than anything.
Yeah.
But I would hopefully in a couple of years, if they enjoy it as much as I do, I think that would be the best, just to go play with them and the family.
Yeah, fun. A good way to raise them up doing that, and chocolate and golf. What when you think of the chocolate and the candy industry is a very unique world, right? And it's there's something almost magical in creating something, especially with as much detail and care that you guys put into things at Bissinger's. What's your advice to other business owners to still maintain that level of magic and connectivity in their business?
That's a great question. I think our industry is dying off because there's so many touch points. So I think on a macro level, chocolate's growing, but on a micro level, the amount of owners are getting smaller and smaller, which, to me is, there used to be candy schools. There used to be an industry and infrastructure to support this. So they're mostly, there's some of them are popping back up again, but I just think that whether it's being in the chocolate industry, whether it's being in a profession that, to me, there's hands-on ownership is everything. There's a lot of industries where that doesn't apply, but in the business where you have a manufacturing or a retail brick and mortar or something that you can physically touch, the business, if the business is that, I think you need to be present. And I think that's where morale is boosted. I think that's where the culture is created. I think and I spend a lot of time in my office because I've got I don't get to be on the production floor as much as I used to, but I think probably the best thing I can do to boost morale is help mop the floor when a spill happens and let the team know that, we all clean, we all, if if I'm asking you to get your hands dirty, I'll do the same thing. And I do all the time, but, I used to be down there mopping every day, and now,
right.
Bills have to get paid or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, you got to check the
chocolate has to be ordered. Yeah,
you got to check the analytics on what's happening on the website. So
yeah.
Well, Dan, I really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your story. Where should people go to learn more about you and Bissinger's?
Bissingers.com is the best place to go. I'm also on LinkedIn myself, and hopefully there's a Bissinger's either specialty store that carries Bissinger's near you, or hopefully one day we have a store near you, because we're very excited for kind of our retail growth, which is the 2025, 2026 next chapter now.
Now, yeah, and we're wrapping up, but there you had something kind of exciting about a new store opening. Share that with us real quick.
Yes. So we've been kind of keeping this under wraps for, I feel like a year. It's probably been about 6 to 8 months, but we're going to open this year, we're going to open our first store in a long time, since number one, since 2021, but number two, it's going to be our first store out of state. And we're going with Palm Beach, Florida. So Palm Beach is going to be right on the heart of the island. It's going to be the first Bissinger's boutique, and it's going to open in September.
Awesome. But you guys are in, 3,000 locations around the country, so you can find it, or you can, shop online at bissingers.com. Dan, thank you so much for coming out, sharing your story, and sharing us a little bit about the legacy and history of Bissingers and your stewardship there. To all my Biz Ninjas, wherever you're watching, listening, or tuning in, it's your turn to go out and do something.